Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. Is it too hot?
Battery 100%.
I'm Milton Buckaloo, and I'm one of the board members for the STR Alliance, and we are so glad you're here. It's very encouraging to see so many people here. We're going to start right on time because we have a really full agenda tonight, but I promise we're going to keep things moving, and hopefully we'll keep you entertained as we go. As we start, I want to thank Picasa for bringing coffee and drinks and all the goodies. Thank you, ladies. That's always a treat. I would also like to point out that we have some distinguished guests in the audience. We have former state representative from District 73, Doug Miller. Doug, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We have two of our local Fredericksburg City Council people here tonight. We have Bobby Watson. Bobby, thank you for being here. And also on the agenda to present tonight is Tom Musselman. So Tom, thank you for being here. So this issue is, you know what, it's emotional. It's an emotional issue for many of us for all kinds of different reasons, most of which are right. But as adults, we have a challenge and we have a responsibility, and I just want to talk to you about that for just a moment. One of the commitments that we've made in the STR Alliance is that we will present data that's factual, we will ask hard questions, and we will take a stand oppositionally, and we will do that with respect for other people. And I have to tell you, I've been in many public meetings when that wasn't exercised, and you have a hard time getting anywhere when it just turns completely emotional and almost irrational. So I'm going to raise the bar for myself because I'm pretty emotional over this issue myself, and say, let's approach all of this logically, keeping our emotions active only inside, all right? And just be responsible. I really believe, especially after the engagements I've had this week, that our best way forward is to engage with our city, with our leaders in this city, to find the best solution collaboratively. And that's what we're seeking as the Alliance, and I hope that you're aligned with that. We have 400 plus members now in 2 months. We're really proud of that number. We're growing every day. We add people to the membership of the Alliance. I think we all represent that our mission is to be good neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. We want to respect our neighbors. We want to protect our opportunities to succeed in business and protect our property rights. And those are very important positions for the Alliance. So thank you for being here. You should have been given an agenda, so you'll be able to see the agenda. No agenda? There's not an agenda? Is that what you said? There's not an agenda. You were not given an agenda. It's a secret. Oh, do you have an agenda? It's a welcome letter and, yeah, okay. There are some things on here. Okay, a couple of days ago. All right, well, I'm going to cover the agenda very quickly when I find that clicker. Thank you. There's the agenda. Coming up in just a few moments, we have Ashley Hodgeny. Did I say that right? Close enough. All right, close enough. Thank you. From VRBO, she is the government relations person based in Austin for this region of the state of Texas. We also have Luis Briones, who is government relations rep for Airbnb, also based in Austin. They will be speaking to us. Belinda McDonald will come up in a few moments and share some facts and impacts that we have gathered. It's one of the things we spend a lot of time on in the Alliance, which has become a pretty much unpaid full job for many of us in the last few weeks, is to collect data that we find that can have as much integrity as we possibly can get. And if we're not sure, we're going to tell you. We're not completely sure, but this is what we think. How many of you have read the ordinances that were sent out or posted? So many of you, all 106 pages? Hot dog. I am impressed. All right. I think, Councilman, you said you read it twice, right? Twice, yeah. There's a lot there. And what we intend to do is in about 15 minutes, unpack that to highlight what we feel like are some of the most important aspects of that document. All right. And then, as I mentioned, Councilman Musselman will spend some time speaking to us. I've asked him to say, what do you think about when you think about the future of Fredericksburg and how STRs and tourism, things like that play into it. He's been here a long time, and he's very integrated in the community, so I look forward to that. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you have questions or comments at any point throughout this evening until we get to the last piece, which is around comments and questions and answer, please write them down, but don't ask them during the presentation. I want to keep this going. The last bit is where we have a great opportunity to have dialogue. I want to hear from you. You probably want to hear from our speakers and so forth. So that's what we'll do at the end. All right. If there's nothing else, Ashley, I'm turning it over to you. There's the clicker and there's your mic. And do you have a mic? This?
Hand that to her. There you go.
You have to click it close.
All right. Working? Yes? Okay. Hi, good evening. Thank you all so much for coming out here. I know you're very busy. If you own or manage properties, you're very, very, very busy. I'm hoping that you all had a wonderful Labor Day weekend and you enjoyed a lot of business. This is so extremely important, what you're doing right now. This is a phenomenal group. I will tell you, I've been in this position for about 6 years now. I've worked in over 20 states in dozens and dozens of jurisdictions. I rarely come across a group that is so well organized, that has their eye on the ball, that is constantly communicating and focusing on the right things. So if you're not already a member, I would encourage you to join. This is a great group of people, and it is your first step and gateway into engaging politically, which is ultimately, I think, what we're here to talk about tonight. So I've been asked to speak on some experience from, I guess, just my perspective working in other regions. One of the questions that we are consistently asked is, okay, my city and town is doing this. What are other cities and towns doing? What does this look like in other areas? How is this working? So I thought I would take a moment to talk about some good and bad and in the middle of the road examples. If you are crafting short-term rental policy, obviously it depends on your jurisdiction. This is a vacation destination, Fredericksburg. It's also a very small town. It's not a big city. It's not Austin, where I live in. So the policy is going to look a little bit different here than it would in a major urban area. But writ large, you're looking for policies that are easy to understand. They are data-driven, meaning you understand the universe that you're attempting to regulate. You understand what the potential impacts are should you be able to enforce those regulations. And then you have to ask yourself, can we enforce this? And how can we do better? Any policy that ropes in the community in the process of making it is going to be more successful. There are lots of cities that do this. There are lots of cities that don't. So I think it's really important to continue to be a part of that dialogue and to engage to the extent possible, because that's really what the sausage making process is all about in legislation. So here are some examples of cities that have gone about the policymaking process in what we would consider a responsible way. They created citizen-driven task force. They took their time in considering and weighing all of their different options. Will this policy solution address this issue? Will this policy solution address this issue? And, you know, we'll use San Antonio just right down the road. They're a big city. Their policy issues are not the same as Fredericksburg, but they even went as so far as to say, hey, we're going to place some limitations on homes. But they took their time in how they did it. They received feedback from property owners and managers. They looked at the demand that they had and the capacity that they had, and they drew a line accordingly. As far as I know, this has been working relatively well. For the most part, people feel that this is a fair policy. And I personally haven't heard of any issues with enforcement in that particular jurisdiction. So just really good example of what good looks like. Maybe closer, is that better? Okay. Then you have policies that aren't as well thought through. And we get it, right? We're in an environment where there are now housing challenges across the country. We see common nuisance issues are like the number one thing that people complain about. No industry is perfect. There's always room for improvement. But when you approach it from sort of a knee-jerk reaction and try to one-size-fits-all policy approach to each and every single problem, it can get out of hand, and it doesn't always work. So what you really want to do is make sure that you're understanding what the issues are that are driving the concern, and you are addressing those issues specifically and understanding the impact that such regulation could have. Some examples of where it's not going so well. Los Angeles, not comparable really to Fredericksburg, but not only do they not allow traditional vacation rentals, they limit how much you can use your own home in a given year. It took them 5+ years. I think they're still tweaking their short-term rental policies, so not such a good look. New Orleans, a little bit more comparable to Fredericksburg, just because of the tourism aspect. They recently overhauled their system. It's incredibly complicated. Their permitting system is incredibly complicated. Staff seems administratively burdened, and they have these restrictions that aren't necessarily market appropriate, but they went and did that after hearing a lot of the same concerns that you guys are hearing in your community. And they have, I heard some questions earlier about a conditional use. They have a process there where if you're not in a primary home, if you're in an area where, hey, you might be able to rent, you may not be, they can apply for a conditional use, and it just hasn't worked very well. I remember one public hearing where a gentleman who was in a mixed use zone right next door to a mini mart, and he went to council requesting a conditional use. He had signatures from most of his neighbors saying, we support this. They struck it down anyway. And that's kind of the problem with policies that are subjective and not equitably applied. So we want to avoid that typically at all costs. Best practices for engagement. Keep doing what you're doing now. Don't assume that when you reach out to a policymaker, they're going to automatically understand what you're talking about. It's going to be a lot of education, not only about what it is that you do, but the value that you bring the community. Make it personal. Tell your story. You are a constituent. They want to hear from you. Show of hands. How many people employ or hire landscapers, pool cleaners, housekeepers? Everybody. All of those people have a vested interest in this discussion as well. And anything that City Council does is going to affect you and that chain. It's not just about you. It's not just about your property. It's about the broader economic nexus. We are supporting a tourism ecosystem in Fredericksburg. If council or some feel that it's out of balance, then we should talk about it. But we have to bear in mind the ramifications of those discussions and those policy decisions. I was told to keep it brief, so I am going to hand it over to my counterpart at Airbnb, Luis Briones. He works with me here in Texas, and I would love for him to touch on some of the platform side of things that we can do to assist with compliance.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I have to echo what Ashley began with. I've not seen such an organized group. I mean, this is amazing here. So kudos to all of you for coming together and really sort of standing up for what you believe is right. And, as Ashley mentioned, super important to engage in these issues and make sure that your voice is heard. So again, kudos to all of you. My slide is blank, as you can see, mostly because I knew Ashley would cover most of this. But, but honestly, I think, we have been, I think, Ashley, you've been at the company 6 years. I have been at Airbnb for 6 years. I've had experience working on these kinds of issues, different places, not just here in the US, but across the world. I think there are common denominators no matter where you go. And one of those is, as Ashley mentioned, when you have this process where there's the feedback, there's the ability for you guys to provide input, it tends to turn out much more successful. There are cities and there are towns, not just in the US, but across the world that just kind of ram things through. right? And that's when you have suboptimal outcomes. But with such a group as I see tonight, I can't believe that that will be the case here in Fredericksburg. Just a couple of things to mention and to note and to build on what Ashley mentioned. We understand that there's a lot of concerns regarding housing, regarding noise and nuisance, regarding many things that are very valid. We take those seriously. Just earlier today, Mills and I were meeting with the PD here to try to walk them through some of the tools that we have built, both of our platforms to respond to some of those challenges. We have, for example, what's called a law enforcement portal. To really help in their work that they're trying to do when they have calls that they respond to and things like that, we understand that those things can happen, right? And so we want to build the tools so that they have the information they need to be able to, make their work easier, truth be told. Same is true for our work with cities, right? So, as far as I understand, there's a registration system here in Fredericksburg, and that's already sort of way ahead of what other towns and cities do across the nation. And in Texas specifically, there's some places where it's not recognized. Short-term rentals are not recognized. Now, tourism is very important to Fredericksburg, so it makes sense that that be the case. This group, from what I hear, has already done a really great job of educating hosts, operators, owners, whatever, sort of anyone that's involved in short-term rentals about what that registration system looks like. And so what we're here to do is to help that along, right? That process exists. We want to educate as many folks about that process, newcomers to the platform. There are all kinds of people, and I see it in this room. It's not just young people who are doing STRs, it's also older people, it's people of all kind. And so it's not always immediately obvious what the rules are, but we're here to help educate as many folks as possible, not just the host base, but also the broader community of what those tools on our platform look like. Speaking specifically on noise and nuisance, which I understand that Fredericksburg is a very popular town, and you have lots of people that come here any given weekend. We have built a set of tools that allow for neighbors. We have a thing called the neighbor support line. It's both a website and a phone number. VRBO, Expedia Group has the same, where you can flag these neighbors. They don't have to have an Airbnb or Expedia or VRBO user account. They can log on or come onto this website, call this phone number, flag issues. What we do, as I'm sure many of you have probably seen as hosts, is we obviously will interface with you, we'll communicate with you as hosts, we'll do the same thing with the guests, and we'll sort of circle back on these complaints. So what I'm trying to say with all this is there is recourse for when there are issues. And what I'm trying to do, what Ashley's trying to do, is just educate as many of the stakeholders here in Fredericksburg as possible to these tools, these solutions that we have on our end, on the platform end, to try to tackle some of the issues that are present, right? Whether it's noise and nuisance, safety concerns, those things on one side, and on the other hand, the host education side. Now, again, as we go through this process, the policy formation process, it'll be super important for all of you to remain involved, for all of you to speak up, to go to these, not just these meetings, but obviously the ones at City Council. And I firmly believe that will continue to happen. So, that's it in terms of, I've also kept it super brief, but I'll be here obviously in case you guys have any questions and or anything else that you want to follow up with me about. But let's see what.
Okay, so I have two things. One, I'm a visual storyteller, and the other one is I'm barely taller than this podium, and I need it to put stuff on. So I'm going to improvise and solve a problem over here. Bear with me. Okie doke. So it's my job tonight to try and take a lot of data, and there's a lot of data out there. We've spent months digesting what we can find from the Visitor and Conventions Bureau, the City Development Office, and then other things that we can find online. So I've tried to make those mesh where we're all talking about the same thing and the same numbers as much as possible. So I'm going to give you just a brief bird's eye view of all of that, and I'm going to dive into the Fredericksburg STR market overview, the residential inventory that we have here, and the economic impact of the STR market here. So bear with me while I go through this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is 3 data regions. I come from a world where I had to give high-level CEO officers data regarding corporate projects. And so it's really important that you're always talking about the same data. So we hear a lot, I hear quite frequently that there's 1,600 STRs in Fredericksburg. Well, let's back that up a little bit. That number is coming from a company called AirDNA. They scrape data from Airbnb and VRBO, and they compile it all, and they compile it by zip code. So I have an AirDNA account. It's great for market research. I've talked to the reps there. There's no way to filter that down to where it's just the city limits. So anytime you get data from AirDNA, it's going to tell you that there's roughly 1,600 STRs. So if we look at this map, the large square there is, in blue is Gillespie County, which is over 1,000 square miles. The zip code area is over 700 square miles, and our city is 9 square miles. So you can imagine there are not 1,600 STRs in Fredericksburg. There are quite a few, but they're not 1,600. So what do the STRs in Fredericksburg look like? Well, this is data from AirDNA, and they do a great job of giving us an overview into that. So we know from their data that about 64% of the STRs in our area are 2 bedrooms or less. 5 bedrooms are less than 5% of the market, or right at 5% of the market. The general averages, we've got 2.2 bedrooms on average, 5.6 guests on average, and I know we've all had people try to sneak people into our house, but I've never seen a 0.6, so somewhere between 5 and 6. And they're rented out about half the time. We have a big weekend market here. Last year, we did see a lot more visitors during the week because of lockdown. They wanted to get away, and they would come work and stay here and do that. So these numbers are a little higher than what we might see otherwise. But so that's the general overview. Now, residential inventory. Now, realtors are used to hearing that. People working planning and zoning are used to hearing that. That just means how many residential lots do we have in Fredericksburg? So there's this handy tool on the city's website that's a map, and it's color-coded by all of the different lot types. So it's everything from commercial down to R1, which is a standard residential home that we all think of with one home on it. So if we go into where we zoom in on that a little bit, you can really see the color codes a lot better. So the green is R1, ones we were just talking about. Let's see, let me take one step back. Altogether with residential, there's 4,589. So let's dive into how those are divided up. I will point out the green is R1. The yellow-ish is R2, so duplexes. There are some, it doesn't show, it kind of shows as a orange on here. It's a little different when you look at it online, but those are R3s, I believe. So if we go to the next and we divide those up, now these numbers are from the data that our development director gave us all back in May. If any of you attended those public workshops, he listed out how many units there were. So R1 is the green. I'm trying to make this correspond to that map we just looked at. So R1s in town, there's 3,711 R1s. We've got 810 R2s and 68 of the R3s. So let's do a comparison of the STR properties and how many there are of each category of that. So we've got 231 STRs in R1 out of 3,711. That's 6%, if you're doing the math. Out of R2s, at the 810, 115 are STRs, 14%, a little higher percentage there. And of the 68 that are R3, there's 2 that are STRs. Now, this was back as of end of May when those presentations were done. So this is a snapshot in time. 3% of R3s are STRs. So, economic impacts. Now, we know that from earlier meetings that there's quite a big impact. So we sharpened our numbers a little bit, took a look at it. We know that the city projects over, well, in their 2022 budget, they projected conservatively a hot tax amount of 3.5 million. So from that, we can extrapolate and come up with other numbers. So the growth, that would mean that the gross lodging receipts from STRs would be 50 million. Now, we start thinking about, Ashley mentioned housekeepers, lawn services. There's also the tourists that go out and spend money. I heard Ernie Leffler the other day say that they spend about 44% of their lodging amount out and about locally while they're here visiting us. So that's 22 million. Then there's sales tax on what they go spend their money on. So that's about 330,000 if I did the math right. Then we also know from earlier data that we did that about half of all STR owners live here locally or very close by. So that's another 25 million that stays right here. Services, lawn management, housekeeping, those people that have the different services that help manage their homes, that's conservatively another $12 million. And that's including all of the money that's going to the housekeepers, the people that do maintenance, and they're taking their money, they're going to Main Street, they're going to H-E-B, and they're going to Walmart, and they're doing their shopping too. So there's additional tax on that. Oops. Did I skip one? Oh, well, let me just say, we're about to get to Leslie. Oh no, Leslie. There we go. Okay, about to get to Leslie, but before I do, all of those numbers that I just went through, well, it's okay. Those total up to over $100 million. Now you can slice it up different ways, but over 60 million of that stays here locally. So with that, Leslie's going to dive into all of the nitty gritty about that new ordinance. So, but all the green zoning and stuff that you saw, the R1, R2, is going to directly relate to what she's got here for you.
Leave that mic. Okay, can y'all hear me? Yes. Okay, good. It's been a little hard to hear. This room is not great. I remember the days when they had plays up here. It was still not great then. Okay, so why now? So what is the motivation of the city to change the ordinance and the zoning regulations? So after the meetings, the 4 meetings we had at the beginning of the summer, we thought the motivation was all the violations and the complaints. Yesterday, we learned from city staff that the motivation to change the ordinance is not about the complaints or neighbors or non-compliance of the STRs, it's about a land use problem. The city needs to update the current regulation to address land use issues that have never been addressed. It was new news to us because after those 4 meetings in May, we set our sights on raising the bar and fixing those complaints and making our STRs better so that we weren't being bad neighbors. So there's a land use problem. That's what's going on. Non-conforming use, which is what they're calling grandfathering. It's apparently already in the code. It's just not in your 106 pages because they didn't make a change to it. So I'm going to use the term grandfathering because people understand that better. I'd never heard of non-conforming use before. So how the city plans to address grandfathering. First, existing STRs that are legal and permitted will be allowed to continue in perpetuity as long as they stay in compliance of the ordinances they were permitted under, the ordinances today. An STR owner may sell an individual STR to an individual and have that STR permit transfer to the new owner. The new owner will then have 10 business days to update the city with the new contact information. Okay? An STR owner may lose their permit if they stop operating it as an STR for longer than 90 days. Okay, so if there's a 90-day period that goes by that you don't pay hot tax or you don't show receipts, you could lose your permit. In other words, you must rent it to keep your permit. An STR owner may lose their permit through multiple violations of the code they were permitted under. Okay, so that's another way that an STR that's grandfathered could lose their permit. If an STR owner makes alterations or additions, they will have to be re-permitted under the new codes and ordinances. So you add a building, you add a room, you change your bathroom, you knock down walls, you pull a building permit for all of that, you'll need to then meet the new codes. And just so y'all know, I know people are taking pictures, which is absolutely fine, but we're gonna post this slideshow on the website after this, so you can get it there too. Okay, so I'm gonna break it down by R1, R2, the things that are specific to those zones, and then we'll talk about things that are for everyone. So when you see R1 in a minute, it's not gonna be all of it. There's a little bit more to it. And what I've tried to do with this is, that is a huge document. It's a lot of information. It's confusing. So we summarized. I did send this deck to Jason Lutz, the city planner. I had him look at it to make sure I didn't summarize inaccurately. So he found one thing, so that was good. I've corrected that. So it's been vetted somewhat. So here we go. So R1 single family residential. So these are zoning changes that would be specific to R1 and would only apply to a new permit or new construction. So not an existing permitted STR. Okay, so new permit or new construction. All right. A minimum lot area is of 7,500 square feet for new construction of a non-owner occupied STR, or 10,000 square feet for a home with an accessory building used for STR. This is where Jason gave me some clarification. He said, this is true, but a person with a smaller lot, that's smaller than 7,500 square feet with an existing property could apply for a conditional use permit if they didn't have a 7,500 square foot lot. That would be for new construction. So a smaller lot could potentially have an STR as long as they weren't building from scratch. All right. In order to have an STR as an accessory building, the owner must occupy the main house and they will need to prove it with a registered homestead exemption in Gillespie County. The accessory building must not be larger than the primary residence. The STR would be limited to 2 overnight occupants per bedroom plus 2 more additional occupants, but the maximum occupancy would be never more than 10 overnight guests. That's a big change. Provide 1 off-street parking space per bedroom. So I have a 3-bedroom house, 3 spots, 4-bedroom house, 4 spots, okay? In R1. Sorry. In order to have an STR in R1 that is not owner-occupied STR, an STR must be within 200 square feet of another STR and apply for a CUP. Okay, so in order to have an STR in R1 that's not already there, and it's not owner-occupied, you must be within 200 feet of another STR to apply for a conditional use permit. Okay, R2 mixed residential. Zoning changes specific to R2 and only apply to new permit and new construction. Okay, we'll get to the other in a minute. All STR facilities, this is the multiple units, must have 1 ADA compliant unit when there's more than 3 units offered. R2 and above with 3 or more units must have fire sprinklers installed. A limit to 2 overnight occupants per bedroom plus 2 additional occupants, but not exceeding 10 total, same as in R1. Provide one off-street parking space per bedroom, same. The R2 in the historic overlay district will only be allowed one structure per 5,000 square feet of lot space. It's a pretty big difference. One structure for 5,000 square feet. If you have a 10,000 square foot lot, 2 structures. R2 outside of the historic district overlay, the amount of structures would be unlimited as long as the STR follows the density and parking ordinances. That's also a big change. That means more in R2 outside the historic overlay. The historic overlay, zoning changes specific to the historic overlay and applying to new permits and new construction is the one structure per 5,000 square feet of lot space. In order to have an STR in the historic overlay district, a CUP is required. Okay, I explained CUPs last time. Is there anyone in here who does not understand that I need to go through that? Okay, so I'm sorry. So a CUP is a conditional use permit. So you would need to apply for that with the city and provide them all of the information they would need with lot layouts and all of that. It would go in front of planning and zoning. They would send out a letter to everyone within 200 feet of your property. They would likely be at planning and zoning as well. They would hear your case. They would potentially pass that on to city council. They would hear it. Then it would potentially get passed on and you would get a permit. Or it could die at any one of those points. So a conditional use permit, there's a lot of eyes looking at it all the way through. It's not a for sure. Okay, all short-term rentals. Zoning changes that apply to all existing and new short-term rentals. So all of these people in the room that are grandfathering and feeling super comfortable, these are things that you would need to do to update as well, okay? Quiet hours posted in a prominent location in the rear yard or common gathering area. The annual permit fee increases to $500. A city ID sticker would be placed on the front of the STR. And what this is for, this is actually something that the Alliance suggested to the city and one of the suggestions they took. The purpose of this is to have contact information on your STR so that it would be easy for emergency professionals to know how to get a hold of someone or a neighbor or anybody really that needed to know if there was a problem at your home. Inspections, when a new STR is permitted or transferred to a new owner or when modifications occur. Inspections would be every 2 years instead of every year like they are now. They would do even addresses in even years, odd addresses in odd years, and then they would get all of us on the same schedule. So even if you got permitted last month and inspected, you might, when this all goes into place, get inspected really quickly again to get everyone on this same odd, even year schedule. New owners would have 10 business days to update the city of change in ownership and new owner information. There's a $250 fine for a first violation, and then the fine would double every time after that within a calendar year. You don't want violations. Your permit is revoked for 90 days on the 6th offense. It's new. If a hot tub or fire pit is replaced, in other words, it is ruined, whatever, breaks, I don't know, you would potentially have to bring the hot tub up to the new code, which would mean likely moving it. It could mean moving it. So if you have to replace something, then it would have to be brought up to code. And just a little tip that none of us knew, all hot tubs have to be permitted. Did everyone know that already? I did not. Several of us didn't know that. So your hot tub has to be permitted. So now we know. What? Oh, about the city. So you have to have a city permit. You have to pull a permit for a hot tub, to install a hot tub. Well, if it's already in. You're supposed to pull one before you get, yeah. 1 96-gallon trash can for every 4 occupants. So that's a new thing. I think that's an attempt to alleviate the trash problem. Okay, all short-term rentals, zoning changes affecting all new permits and new construction. So everybody that's starting new and building new. Swimming pools, hot tubs, fire pits, pool equipment, et cetera, will have to be 15 feet from a side yard setback if the lot is 50 feet or less. So that's pretty small. 25-foot setback if the lot is greater than 50. Okay. A rear yard setback for the above is 15 feet. So the pools on the property lines wouldn't work anymore. STRs must install and maintain screening in the form of a solid wood or masonry fence 6 feet tall or evergreen plant material that is a minimum of 8 feet tall. Crushed granite shall be considered impervious cover when used for parking spaces. So we questioned this because we thought granite was pervious cover, but the city feels that it turns into impervious cover over time, and so they did not want to consider that as an impervious cover. So that can't be considered in your amount, your percentage of impervious cover when you're building your property. Okay, so some takeaways. So any homeowner that is in R1 and is not within 200 feet of a permitted STR or 500 feet from a commercial district, they cannot apply for a CUP to be permitted. So that means there are people that aren't 200 feet from an existing STR or 500 feet from the commercial district. They will not be able to have this STR ever. Okay? In the back, where's the map, Randy? Is it back there somewhere? We have a map we'll put out after. The city planner gave me the map today. He was trying to get it updated for our meeting, but he didn't get it done. But it's a map from the beginning of the summer. It has all the STRs on it at that time. And it gives you a very good an indication of what it would look like, who would require CUPs. Everything on the yellow would require CUPs. Everything in the green would not be allowed to have an STR ever. So the yellow area is much larger. The green area is much smaller now, but it'll give you a good idea. So look at that map before you leave. All legally permitted STRs are grandfathered until they are no longer used as an STR for a period of 90 days or they lose their permit through multiple violations. It's another takeaway. Okay, this is very important to people who are in process, like me, okay? So if you are a person that has bought a property and you're in process, you've got a building permit, you're under construction, you had the intent of having an STR on this property, I mean, it's concerning, right? Because we probably won't have that done if something like this goes through, right? So we spoke with city about that. They didn't give us a definite answer. They're working on it. They realize that that is a problem. So there will be some sort of grace period that's yet to be determined if you're in the building process. And this will be on a case-by-case basis, which is a little bit terrifying for me. But the good news is they realize that this is an issue and they are working on it. I just don't have a good answer for you yet about it. So, and of course, I'll take questions after about all this. So now, do you want to, Milton? Thank you. Yeah. Wait. Give this to Tom.
You're going to have a chance to comment on or ask questions or clarify in just a few moments. You can see there's a lot that we're trying to cover in about an hour and a half here. So I encourage all of you who have not read the ordinances or posted on the city's website, dig in there and look at it. You'll see that there's a bunch of things in there that quite frankly it's repetitive. It hasn't changed. You want to pay attention to the blue and to the red. Those are things you really want to pay attention to. All right? All right. I am very thankful that Council Wilson has agreed to come and spend some time with us. One of the things that I recognize about the city leaders is they're keeping their eyes on the people here. And I really appreciate that. And I think you can believe that their interest is in the best of this city. They really care about what happens with our town. And so, without further ado, Councilman, please come up and share your list. Yeah. There you go. Just click it on your.
Got to keep up.
You don't have any slides.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to use my teacher voice. Thank you for inviting me tonight. The good news is I think that in our community, everybody in here realizes the value of short-term rental units in helping Fredericksburg do what it does best, which is provide services, provide a venue for entertainment for people that come to our community, they have a good time, and then they go home. That is, I think it's important. I believe the last hotel that was built in Fredericksburg was the Holiday Inn on South Washington at Granite Street. I believe that's it. That's the last one. Hmm? Oh, the yeah, that's down the street from me. But the issue, why I bring that up is that there are more STR rooms, and some of the statistics that were given tonight, we're talking about units, but we're not talking about the number of people that can stay in our community in those units. There are, I believe this is correct, that there are now more STR rooms in various units around town than there are hotel rooms. Okay, so this community as a base for tourism would be in a world of hurt if we didn't have STRs. I live next to an STR, and I have had no problems whatsoever with the people that stay there or the owner of the STR. And I believe that is, except for the noise that's coming from Jeffrey Moore's or STR. Yes, fire pits out in the back, and yeah, okay, well, it's his that's noisy, not other people's. Okay, so I'm supportive of STRs. They have grown. I think that everybody in here realizes that the issue of regulation is an issue of how do we go about maintaining a balance in our community. I believe that we all realize Fredericksburg is, I guess as a historian, I'll say, Fredericksburg is kind of the tip of the sword of the STR movement. There are many communities in the state of Texas and in other states that have looked at our existing STR ordinance as a guideline. We got into it because of the work of the B&B industry, I guess really started by Ken Knopp so many years ago, and it's just grown. So I'm in favor. We can't survive as a tourist destination in Texas right now without STRs. Okay, I firmly believe that. Okay, so you need to understand that. I don't believe that I'm the only one on the city council that believes that. Whatever I say tonight, I don't speak for anybody else but myself. As far as regulation, the only really severe regulations that are going into effect are properties that might be under construction or in the process of being construction on North Lincoln Street. But aren't you on North Lincoln Street? Oh. Okay. Took a little time for the nickel to fall down. Okay. One thing that I would ask you to do is that on the handout that you received tonight, you got all the contact information from all the council members. I was first elected on the council in 2005. Back in 2018, we welcome phone calls. I return emails. Sit down. If you have a question, you have an issue, the best thing to do is to contact a councilman. I have, you know, I try to be proactive, and I believe everybody on the council wants to be proactive about making this a better place, a better place to live. I encourage everyone to attend Monday's STR work session that will be out at the University Center in the HEB room. I think it starts at 6 o'clock. The city council, the draft of this ordinance was sent out to city council last Friday evening. So many people didn't even see it. If they didn't check their email on Friday, they didn't get it until they did check their email. So I've had the opportunity to read through it. I've had some discussions with my close STR neighbor, and there's a lot of, I think there are a lot of issues that are in here that this is a marvelous document. Okay. And if you look at section, I think 5.401, this is addressing many of the issues that have recurringly come up about STRs, enforcement issues with STRs. My personal belief has always been that 90% of the SDR complaints are coming from 10% of the STRs. I applaud Milton and Randy and Leslie and the board for developing this document and deciding that one of the best things that could happen for the STR industry is to educate those people who have a substantial economic interest in our community. And I know that for a fact. Okay. So anything that this is an ongoing, I guess, conversation as far as policy making with the city. So we will have, we'll have the workshop on Monday. Any kind of draft, any kind of new draft land use ordinance covering STRs is going to go through the normal process, and that normal process will be the drafting of an ordinance. That ordinance will go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. There will be notification of the Planning and Zoning meeting. There will be a recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They might tell the development office, we're not comfortable with this. You need to change this. We'll see we will see what happens after the workshop meeting on Monday. The council has not discussed this. It's never been an agenda item. And so that's where we are. That's where we stand. I reiterate, if you have questions, send me an email, call me. We'll have coffee at Clear River. No, I don't get a discount, but I bring my own cup, so it only costs me $1. So, Milton, that's all I've got, unless.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to have you here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. In this last segment of our meeting tonight, it's very important for us to be able to hear back from you. You've had a lot of time to digest, hopefully, what you've heard, and you have thoughts and you have concerns. So we're going to do this in a very organized way, and that is, you get to tell us what you're thinking. And here's the first question I'd like to ask you. Based on the data that you've seen tonight, what you've got out of the ordinance that you've read through, how do you see any of this affecting you and your business operation in an STR, your property rights. So I'm going to ask you just to raise your hand. We're going to take notes on that. Madam Secretary, if you would, please. We want to hear from you. So what concerns do you have? And then we're going to get to questions and answers. But I first want to hear your thinking. Right in front of your mouth, real loud.
Okay, I'm not concerned about the space issue, because I'm not a paper. I know a lot of people are not. But I have ancillary buildings. What happens? I mean, it's the maximum for any SDR in 70%.
You're at an R1 on a half acre? Okay. So specifically,
Historic.
Hmm?
Historic.
in the historic, under the historic overlay. All right, so you're wondering what happens to the rest of my buildings? Yeah, okay. So you're concerned about what happens to the rest
Well, the girl
of yours.
needs somebody pool house.
Does she? I don't know. I'm coming over here next.
Sorry, I hate to talk and speak about real estate. My name's Fredericksburg. I'm a resident of the city. One of the things that is concerning me is that I have heard this land use excuse, and I'm going to use that word, sorry, because all of the ordinance changes that, to my perception, were directly pointed at SDRs. It wasn't a wider land use issue across the city. I also feel that the ordinance is more restrictive on STRs than it is on hotels. So a hotel only is required to have 35 square feet per person in the room, but the city wants to do 50 square feet for the STR. Why is it more restrictive? And if you think about, if you take all of the rooms that are part of the house, and you add up all the square feet in those houses and those rooms, and you compare it to a hotel, you are going to far surpass the square feet in that hotel with the number of SDRs that are serving up the same amount of rooms. So if you're going to tell me it's a safety issue, I'm going to have a hard time with that. Why 1.5 parking spaces when a hotel is only required 1.1? Why can't I park in front of my own house? I own it, my guest should be able to park in front of it. So there is a lot of stuff in there that I think is taking it too far and is targeting STRs to make it so difficult for us to do business that we stop. So it is a creative way of stopping us from being able to do our business without telling us we can, to avoid litigation. And I can keep going. I've posted some stuff on the SDR site, so if you're on there, I've shared some of my views. Always welcome to share more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm speaking as a homeowner in the historic district and also as a potential STR owner. What I'm seeing in this area of being 200 feet away from the current licensed STR or 500 feet away from the commercial area is that neighborhoods are going to be completely inundated with STRs. There will be no homes of families left because you have to be within 200 feet of another house. So if I'm on a street that there's maybe one STR, nobody else can put an STR on the street unless they're 200 feet away from the house. But in my neighborhood, where there are maybe less than half STRs and homes, those homes are all going to become STRs because they're all within 200 feet of an existing STR. So I think that's an unintended consequence of these distance rules that you're putting in place. Those of us who are okay with STRs and who might see them sprinkled around the entire city, that's not going to happen. They're all going to live in the same area, on the same streets. That's my issue.
So just as a point of clarification, it's not an unintended consequence. It's actually an intended consequence. Because the idea of the city is to try to pull them all together and then open up other areas of the city where there's none. All right. And, it may not be a good idea. I'm just telling you that's the intention. Yeah. I agree. Okay. I hear you. Good. Other comments, other thoughts? Yes. Oh, they're right in front of you, so we can hear you. All right.
Well, we own homes since 2013, and we used it a long time out, and we just changed it to an SDR. And I guess we use it for our family as well. And so we have kids who come and stay for 3 or 4 months, and then they're not there for a while. And so I guess my concern is the 90-day cutoff, because we'd like to be able to rent it when no one is using it, but we also want it to be available to our friends and family, petitioners, use it for other things. And so I feel like it cuts us out of being able to have multiple uses for a property.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Hi, Joe.
I just wanted some explanation, if anyone knows, why would they limit bedrooms to 2 people? Again, along your lines of, in a hotel room with 2 queens, and those hotel rooms are really small. I'm sure a lot of us have, like I have a huge, the whole upstairs is one large room, and I have 2 queens in it, and a bathroom just for those people. Why would that be a problem? The house is 3,400 square feet, and we've got tons of room. So again, why target us? I've been operating since 2011, never had one citation for any problem ever. I have noise monitors, etc. Why? How can they justify only 2 people in the bedroom?
Thanks. Great.
I understand that there's a new procedure for code enforcement regarding violations for SCRs. And I'd like to know more about that.
Okay, we'll get to that in the question and answer session. Okay, good. Other concerns or thoughts about how you see these impacting your ability to operate your rights? No?
I just want to know if it's going to be applied to owners too, because if you're living in a home and you have a pool next to your fence line and you have parties every night, I would like it to be a blanket regulation versus, because there are some really bad neighbors who live next door. And there's some really good short-term rental people who come and go next door. So it doesn't make sense to me to be regulated to one area.
Okay, good. So that's actually a point of clarification then. Do these types of ordinances apply to every homeowner? Okay. Good. Yes, ma'am. Coming over. There you are.
Just wanted to know why the front feet went up so dramatically.
Okay, good point. All right, hold on to the questions just a minute. We'll get to that. But other thoughts, we really want to capture what your thinking is about how this will impact you. Let's stay on that track just a few minutes, and then we'll get some questions and answers. Yes.
I have a concern about having to file a homestead exemption.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Apparently filed a homestead exemption with Weston County.
Okay.
I don't want to make it my homestead
Oh.
because it affects my carrying my
Okay.
tax,
I get it.
So.
All right.
Yeah, I can if I have to, but I really don't want to because it changes, my ability to write things off as a business.
Okay, good point. Great. Okay, thank you. Yes. I'm coming back to you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm the General Labor Association Rentals, and we employ a lot of people in this town, a lot of really wonderful people. And these individuals, I came from the education industry. Sometimes they make a lot more than my teachers make, which is sad, but it is a fact. We're supporting a lot of lives and a lot of neighbors. And so if our homeowners can't afford to do business, what's that going to do to the people that are employed?
That's a great point. Thank
We have a short-term rental that actually houses 14, very comfortably, a large home, and we live on property. The limit of 10 impacts us greatly. And in for it, that, the way I understood the slide, it looked like that was going to be existing, for existing ones and everything. And I think 10 is a little too low.
Okay, thank you. Good. All right, any last comments?
Sorry.
You promise?
I'll be super fast. I won't approve this. One of the things one of the last things is I still don't quite understand why the city feels that this needs to move so fast. So many people's lives, and it feels like it's being rushed beyond belief. I can't for the life of me put my head around why are they rushing this? My mind goes in bad places, so we'll leave it there.
Okay. All right, Emily, one more?
This is actually kind of a compliment to the STR line, so I'll kind of remind every laundry a little bit. We had an upset neighbor, and that upset neighbor did not know how to reach out to the homeowner. So this neighbor reached out to the STR Alliance, who got in touch with us. And we were already working on the issues that the neighbor had, but we had no way of knowing that they were upset about it. We had just gotten wind of it from our employees. So I was able to connect with this neighbor, hear her out, which is really all she needed. She really didn't even need me to propose a solution. It just made her feel very comfortable and safe that she knew where to go. She thanked me profusely. She even complimented my team. I think she actually complimented us more than she complained, so that was really precious. And when I told her the things that we were doing to ensure that we were being good neighbors, she said that means so much to me. And at the end of the day, her husband works shift work. So anybody coming and going, whether it's a neighbor or a renter, is disrupting their lifestyle. And she admitted that to me. And I was like, you know what? Let me tell you what I'm putting in those check-in instructions from now on. We have a really precious neighbor that lives next to us. This neighbor has to sleep during the middle of the day. So when you're coming and going, be mindful. Our neighbors matter to us. So that is a huge compliment, and my concern is that rushing this is going to kill what we are trying to do, which is a very good thing.
Good, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Oh, one more comment.
I think one thing that we're concerned about is property values. So I feel like an existing STR that would be grandfathered or transferred to a new owner suddenly will be worth so much more than a home that somebody is living in. So 2 years from now, if they decide to sell it, you're selling it saying, well, you have to go get a conditional use permit, whereas your neighbor who has an existing STR, oh, it can be an STR. So now their property value is skyrocketed compared to what the people that are living there.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you. I believe that point was made at a previous city council meeting. It just said if this happens, we're going to see a huge disparity between some home values and others that are going to collapse, and we'll see some that are. And so you see a huge spread. I think that's kind of what you're talking to. I think it's a great point. All right, so I'm going to shift now to please put your questions forward. And we'll do our best to see if any of our staff, our speakers, our council members can answer those. If we can't, we're going to take notes and we're going to try to find answers for you. Or even better, use your 3 minutes next Monday at the city council work session. All right, that's a good time to put your questions forward. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. On the fence, if we don't have a fence all the way around the backyard, do we have to put one up?
Yeah, good question. Are we going to, first of all, I guess the grandfathering is okay on your existing properties, but on new construction.
Because of you, anybody within 200 feet of you is able to apply for a conditional use permit and have an STR.
So here's how that could potentially work. You have one, and then the neighbor gets one, and then the other neighbor can get one because that one did, then the other neighbor on the other side of them. So it just does this, in essence. That's how this would work. Why, I know, it's...
And she's exactly right. And we brought that up with the staff when we met this week about this to clarify what we thought. And that's the intended purpose, is to push all of the STRs into areas that they already are. So there will be many more in areas where they are and none in areas where there aren't. But if you look at the map back here, there's very few areas that aren't. So they're trying to protect those areas that are green. We look at the map and see what I'm saying.
So that if you have a house on the street over from you, and your 200 backyard is 250 minutes, this is just going to continue. It's just going to proliferate through the whole community. You're not stopping it this way.
No.
It would be better if it was sprinkled around. I don't understand why you have the density.
What's that? Well, it is a CUP process, that's right. Yeah, it has to be approved, right?
Oh, yes. So it would be a CUP process. So they would still have to go through that process. So then the planning and zoning would be looking at it, and then the city council would be looking at it. So lots of eyes would be looking at it, looking at impact. So it's.
So if you have a city,
That's fine.
If you have an Airbnb on the street, an STR on the street, and the council feels that there's too many on the street, then you don't have freedom to start one because they're going to say, no, there's too many on this street, so you're going to have to go to another street.
And that's true. And that's what Ashley was alluding to when she was talking about the problems with conditional use permits is they're subjective. So you have, depending on who's hearing your case, the outcome could be very different depending on, that's right.
And it's a risky to buy it too. You're not gonna buy a property when you don't know if it can be, go a short-term rental.
Also true.
I think that's been one of well, it's been a significant question about what happens to the real estate market here. This has the potential, in many people's opinion, to totally turn it upside down. And I think it's a real concern. As an investor, that's a concern I have. And I know that all of you are in the same boat here. Yeah, that's me.
I just have a comment for the city council members present. That Avenue or Avenue or whatever company it is that you work with to get your short-term rental permit is atrocious. And when they're making my money, I shouldn't have to beg for attention. And I also would like to know what the city council, what additional services they will provide to the property owner if they raise the fee from 150 a year to 500.
So, thank you. I'd like two responses. First of all, Avenue, whatever it's called, it doesn't work for the council. It works for the city staff, and they're the ones that bought it and used it. And it's going away. They've already made the decision. They will not continue to use it. And so I think that's an important question. I think it's an incredibly important question to say, why did we go from 150 to 500? Because quite frankly, we don't have an answer. We haven't gotten an answer. We don't understand it either. So it's a great question for Monday to say, what's behind this? Yeah.
Well, I can't be there.
Well, believe me, there are plenty of people that want to ask that question. So, yeah, good. All right. Who else? Questions? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. I'll come back to you in just a second.
I believe you and I trust you, but where is it in writing that grandfather?
You want to answer that?
So to be honest, I haven't done it myself. It's I spoke to the city attorney last night, and it's called non-conforming use. So you're going to find it on the city website. We've been meeting all day. We have not found it ourselves, but that is where it is addressed. And non-conforming use is grandfathering. Non-conforming use. So we would all under current permitted owners would then be non-conforming after the code went into effect. So we would be in always in non-conforming use. And we would stay under that permit, those permitted guidelines until we lost for neighborhood. It'd be alternate housing, right?
You're still conforming, but you're just under the old code.
That's
non-conforming, you're still conforming. That's right. That's right.
But that is where it's embedded into the code, is non-conforming use.
That's a terrible
Well,
I didn't write it.
yeah.
Because nobody wants to be non-conforming.
All right.
Say it's 106 pages somewhere about
It does not. And the reason it doesn't, when we ask city staff, why is it not addressed in here, because this is what everybody wants to know, is because there was no changes made to the non-conforming use. So that's what the 10 people are. No, there are changes made to the code, but not to the non-conforming use code. That's written in a different area. There were no changes to that. So that's the reason it is not in this document.
Right. Non-conforming means non-conforming, and they didn't change that definition, but yeah, so where it applies, we don't know. It's a great question to ask on Monday. Yeah.
Given more time, we'll have that figured out on Monday for sure.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I've got Troy, and then I'll come over here.
I have a question around the ordinance and how, when it will go into effect. So let's just assume that this goes to city council, and city council votes to put this ordinance into effect. Will it be in effect that day, the next day? Will there be a certain amount of time before it goes into effect?
So I had an article, and I talked to the city planner. He said that this could, at the earliest point, be voted on October 18th. In the city council. He did not think that would happen, because of all the things that have to happen for that to get to vote. Also, but if that were to happen, at the earliest, point, he said a lot of things that have to happen after that he changed codes in all these other areas, which take time. So he said he would be shooting for a January 1 adoption date. That is if it happened.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted some clarification on the whole grandfathering issue. The lady over here that mentioned that she had one room upstairs in her house that sleeps 14. Well, say she gets grandfathered, which is great, but unless I'm confused, if she decides next year that she needs to renovate her kitchen and she pulls a permit for it, then they can come in and say, oh, no, you can't have 14 people, and is that correct? I mean, they can totally change my business
Yes, they can.
because I want to update the kitchen.
That's right. Yeah. So just clarify, she can only sleep 4, so it wouldn't affect her. However, in principle, what you're saying is correct. All right, the city could say, oh, no, okay, so, you've got to conform now to this.
So my banker is just going to have to suck it up and,
I don't know. I'm glad I'm not your banker, though, I will tell you. Yeah.
Yes, my name's Jason. I have a couple questions with the grandfathering. My wife and I just purchased a house, so we're kind of in this limbo. We're not really sure where we can fall. There's a couple other things in there with that as far as the parking. It's a single width parking driveway that we have. And I'm wondering, so it's a 3-bedroom, so we're going to have 3 off-street parking spaces, but I wasn't quite sure in the ordinance where I could understand how many spaces that mine's 40 feet. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can get 3 smart cars in there, but I'm not getting
Yeah.
And I do have plenty of room for 3 full-size Suburbans in front of my house. I understand the point of, I don't want you parking in front of other people's houses. Sure, of course, I think those could be issues that could be handed out correctly. But I'm just kind of confused for one, where we can fall in this whole thing, and what's the parking?
That's a good question. So I can respond to a couple of those. You will be limited by ordinance if this ordinance goes forward. But you have options. So your guests need to know before they come, if you're driving more than 2 cars that fit in there, you need to go park in a public parking place, right? And get somebody that has a car to bring you over. All right, those are going to be some of the solutions, just like you would in a big city, by the way. But
It says that I have to have 1 space, off-street space per bedroom.
per bedroom. Okay, if you have 3 bedrooms, then you need to have.
Does my driveway, does that consist of 3 parking spaces?
So you would be permitted for 2 parking spaces, even if you have 3 bedrooms, that's my understanding. But if you have more cars coming, they have to go park in a public parking lot and commute. Right, because all you can do is 2.
How many many bedrooms do you have?
3.
It's 3. You have your building permit.
It's
In process.
It's in process.
If you already had a permitted plan, I think you would be okay because the city would have signed off on it. But you would, if not, then you would need to have the 3 spaces. They may come back to you and say, we're going to require 3 spaces. If you don't have room to do that, then they might make you limit your occupancy,
Right.
right? Or you can't have more than 2 cars, which would be 4 people.
How big is the parking space?
Kevin?
18.5 by
18.5 by 9. So you've got length, so 18.5 times 3.
There's
Okay.
also an ordinance that says that you can't park a trailer in front of your house for more than 3 days, or your neighbor can't park their work truck in front of their house for more than 3 days. Never enforced. I wouldn't even worry about that.
It's about getting a permit. though.
Also, we should add that if your unit has a garage that can be parked in, that's a parking space. All right, so you clean out the garage because that may be your option. All right. Any last question? You have one question here? Yes.
The question that I had earlier is regarding change in procedure for code violations for STR.
So I'm not sure if I'm the expert on this, and I'm not aware of what was yelled at for asking the question. I guess I am the expert. So again, I'm aware, I did read through it, I did ask a question for the city council the other night. This discussion was held outside of the boundaries of STR ordinance, we talked all about tonight, so it's held separately. It was actually voted on by city council. And I think we're going to take a second reading coming up here shortly to add some clarification to the citation. But as I understand it, in today's process, if I'm issued a citation for watering or trash or noise or whatever that might be, I receive a citation, I go through the process and to municipal court. So a judge will hear me, and I'll point to Kevin in the back here. Kevin received a citation one time for watering violation. Kevin took his information with him, went to municipal court, and proved that at first hearing in front of ours, the water runoff was not from an active sprinkler, and he was not violating, therefore he wasn't cited. So in the new process, as I understand it, the code enforcement officer can cite you, and the citation is proof of the offense, as I understand it. So the process at that point, it goes from a Class C misdemeanor, which is court-based, to a civil adjudication process, which is city-based. So you take that ordinance, that violation, you would go to the city, and you'd be reviewed by a city employee. In this case, I think the ordinance says the city manager's office, if I remember right. So they would determine if you created if the violation is accurate, if so, what that punishment and fine would be in accordance with the violation. This applies to all residents and STR owners. The challenge, on the surface, it sounds okay. Both the policy misdemeanor to a civil offense, which is not reported. Right? That sounds good on the surface, but I think it fundamentally is well intentioned. The challenge I had to it was it's a single-threaded process. So you have a code enforcement officer, which are high integrity individuals, no question, but it does leave the opening for something to go wrong. That if the code violation takes place in the case of Kevin, you're cited for a water sprinkler violation, you go to City Hall and you receive a fine and penalty and so forth. Kevin doesn't have the opportunity to say, listen, this is a first grade issue, this wasn't me. He does have the option to go to this court at that point in time, and as I understand how the ordinance is written, the judge is able to review it to see if there's any procedural errors. So was the process followed properly? If so, Kevin's still guilty of sprinkler. There would be the appeals process on that. I believe I approached the city attorney on this and made a request. Could you please take an impartial secondary set of eyes on the one that's being debated? Kevin says, I'm not guilty. Is there a second set that somebody can come in? Look, we offer our services as the STR Alliance, non-partial, to say, hey, this is a valid violation, guys, I'm sorry. Or this doesn't make any sense. So that's the request we made. They said they would take further advisors, so that's, as I understand it, where that ordinance lies. So we'll go to a second vote next city council meeting with some changes to what the citation is and what it says.
All right. You want to do your session now?
Don't have a whole lot of section. I think Tom Wilson took all my slides, he must have seen them in advance. I kid my kids, because we're not here tonight, but you can't advance the ball down the field unless you're on the field. So, I think I'm safe in saying this, Bobby and Tom, that you're already tired of hearing us ask questions. Is that a safe assumption? No. Got a whole bunch. City council, city council and city staff, all of us folks have been exceptional, meeting with us, very professional. But you all have very, very strong opinions. Guys, I said this before, there's more knowledge in this room, in the SDR industry, with all due respect, than a lot of the folks that are in the industry on a professional basis. And I can say that because you're both like 25 years old. Just an observation. I'm just saying. So come to the planning and zoning. I will tell you, I was so impressed with P&Z last night for a couple of reasons. There are some incredibly smart people on P&Z and City Council. They debated a parking lot ordinance challenge that took an hour and a half, and it was the right thing to do. They could have just easily said, I'm good. They didn't do that, and I have a ton of respect for that due diligence. So come to the P&Z session, come to the workshop, as Tom mentioned on Monday. Have a voice, be a voice. Make sure they understand the impact, what it means to you and your business, to your grandkids. If you're going to will a house to a child and they want to be able to operate an STR. At the core of what we're trying to do here is be good neighbors, run responsible businesses, and as Tom alluded, the 10% that need course corrections, let's fix those problems and let's not kick the legs out from under a wonderful town that we have from a hospitality perspective. So I think, I don't have a clicker on me. Okay, I think that's, I'm thinking that's it. So I put up some of the key dates here. I think Tom already talked about it. Monday coming up is the workshop. Lots and lots of detailed information. P&Z is coming up as well, October 6th. I will tell you, based on the discussion of parking lots, I don't think they're going to pass it one round. I could be wrong, but please come and participate and then follow this process through. I will point to Nancy here for a moment. She's done an exceptional job, the one army of one, with all of our social media, our web campaigns, our communications. Look for emails if you've signed up. We will do our very best. The last thing I'll say is we do this in the evenings, on weekends and things of that nature. So, well, she works all day, I don't. But anyways, I just want to say thank you to all that. Nancy, do you have any final comments?
No, just, I'm gonna stay tucked in behind the camera, so those of you online are just gonna have to listen. Just today, with an email blast that we sent out and a lot of y'all talking to each other, just today alone, we've added 15 members. So you guys are rocking. Keep in mind, tell your friends, the website is up. It has a lot of great information on it. It is FBGTXSTRA. So Fredericksburg, Texas Short-Term Rental Association. Alliance. FBGTXSTRA.com. The other thing is we do have the Facebook group. Like I said in the last meeting, Facebook's old school, I know, but we still are very active on it. Quite a few of you here are extremely active and I love it. So if you're on Facebook, well, some of you are a little overly active, okay. But if you're on Facebook, it's Fredericksburg TXSTR Alliance. And you can find us, we're in one of the groups, so join in.
So finally, we'll wrap up with thank you, Ashley and Luis, for being here. Our partners at Airbnb and VRBO, thank you. Thank you, ladies, for putting together all of the data and Randy. And Councilman, thank you. Appreciate it. Get involved. Don't walk out of this room thinking, I don't know what to do next. I can tell you there's a lot to do. So thank you for your comments. We're going to follow up on them and your questions. Yeah, we'll stay around and answer any questions we can or have discussions. So feel free. Have a good evening.